The film opens with scenes of New York City in the early 1950s. A man named Jack enters a restaurant and notices his friend Therese, who is sitting with an attractive blonde woman named Carol. Jack invites Therese to a party thrown by a mutual friend. She accepts the invitation and joins him. During the ride, Therese has a flashback of a few months earlier when she is at Frankenberg department store where she worked at the counter in the toy department. Amid the bustling crowd of customers, her attention is drawn to the radiant presence of a middle-aged woman named Carol. Carol approaches Therese and requests assistance in finding a Betsy Wetsy doll. Therese informs her that they are sold out but suggests other dolls available for purchase. Carol asks about the doll Therese would have liked as a child. Therese says that she didn't play with dolls but would have loved the train set. Carol decides to go with Therese's recommendation and buys the train set for her daughter. After Carol has walked away, Therese notices that Carol has forgotten her gloves on the counter. After her work shift, Therese joins some friends at a bar. One of them returns her camera, which he has repaired for her. That guy works at the New York Times, so he offers to show her around the photojournalism department if she ever visits. Meanwhile, Carol arrives back at her lavish New Jersey home, where she lovingly brushes her 3-year-old daughter's hair. They discuss Aunt Abby, who is the godmother of Carol's daughter and also Carol's childhood friend. The next day, Carol receives the gloves in the mail from the department store. Then we see that Therese is at work, and her supervisor informs her that there is a phone call for her from a customer. It is Carol on the other side, who is expressing her gratitude for the gloves. Carol invites Therese to lunch, which she accepts. Next, Carol is driving her car with her friend Abby, who starts questioning her about the shop girl she's meeting. Abby playfully teases Carol and suspects that her interest in the shop girl may be more than just gratitude. At the restaurant, Therese and Carol meet for lunch. While waiting for their food, Carol asks Therese if she's living with someone. Therese says no, but mentions that her friend Richard wants to marry her, but she's not in love with him. Carol reveals that she and her husband are getting divorced. She suggests Therese to visit her house in the countryside. Therese later meets her friend at the New York Times building. She's intrigued by the photo lab, but when he tries to kiss her, she stops him and leaves. The following day, we see that Carol has come to pick Therese in her car to visit Carol's home. During their drive, they're both excited to be in each other's company. At Carol's home, Therese sits at the piano and plays a tune. Carol asks about Therese's photography and inquires if she is talented, but Therese is not sure. They are enjoying each other's company when Carol's husband, Harge, arrives to pick up their daughter. Carol objects to his early appearance as they had arranged for their daughter to spend Christmas Eve with her. Harge notices Therese and confronts Carol, believing that she is romantically involved with her. Harge is regretting that he thought she had overcome her period of immorality. After he is gone, Carol returns crying and insists on taking Therese to the train station to catch the train back to the city. Sad and disheartened, Therese takes the train back home. When she arrives at her apartment, the public phone in the hallway begins ringing. When she picks it, she finds Carol on the other side, apologizing for her abrupt departure. Carol asks if she can visit Therese's apartment to see her photographs, to which Therese says yes. The following day, Harge returns to Carol and wants her to join him for Christmas. He also tries to persuade her to reconsider the divorce. However, Carol remains steadfast in her decision. Harge questions where else she would go for Christmas because she has no friends. Carol replies that she has plenty of places to go with her friend Abby. When she brings up Abby's name, Harge accuses her of having an affair with Abby again. Carol clarifies that Abby is their daughter's godmother and that their relationship was over long before it ended with him. Harge becomes agitated and warns her that she will regret her decision. In the next scene, Carol arrives at Therese's apartment. While glancing at the pictures on Therese's wall, Carol says that the pictures are perfect. A day later, Richard and Therese take a stroll through the city, and he questions why she has been distant lately. She explains that they lack chemistry and that falling in love is something beyond one's control. Meanwhile, Carol meets with her lawyer, who informs her that Harge has filed for sole custody of their daughter. This is because he thinks Carol has violated a morality morality clause. Carol understands that this allegation is related to her homosexual relationships. To overcome the grief of separation from her daughter, she decides to go on a trip and asks Therese to come along, to which Therese agrees happily. Back at the apartment, when Therese is packing her belongings for the trip, Richard is also there, and he is not happy with this trip, accusing her of having a schoolgirl crush on an older woman. He predicts that she will regret leaving him when he finds someone else, but Therese disregards his comments and embarks her journey with Carol. Scene shifts to a motel room where Carol is taking a shower, and Therese examines her suitcase and even smells her sweater. She also discovers a concealed gun in Carol's clothes. Meanwhile, back in New Jersey, Harge arrives at Abby's door, desperately seeking Carol. Abby informs him that Carol is not there. We then see Carol and Therese at a restaurant where Therese presents a gift to Carol. It's the album she purchased, containing the song she played on the piano at Carol's home. In return, Carol surprises Therese with a valuable gift, the expensive camera she always wanted. Continuing their journey, they check into another motel at night where Carol applies makeup to Therese, and they both have a great time. After some time, Therese goes outside to fetch some ice. In the parking lot, she encounters a man who offers his assistance. While Therese remains polite, she clearly finds him odd. The next morning, Therese is sitting at a table in a nearby diner. To her surprise, the man she met the previous night joins her and introduces himself as Tommy Tucker. Soon, Carol also arrives at the diner. Tommy tries to initiate a conversation, but Carol responds with a smile, remaining mostly silent. Later that day, Carol and Therese arrive in Chicago. Carol goes into a phone booth and attempts to call her husband's home, longing to hear her daughter's voice. However, she hangs up without speaking when Harge answers the phone. The following day, Carol and Therese continue their journey and eventually reach Waterloo. This is the New Year's Eve, which they celebrate together in a cozy motel room. Carol reflects on how she and Harge never spent New Year's together due to his business meetings. Therese shares that she is usually alone on New Year's Eve, but expresses her gratitude to Carol for not being alone this year. It makes the whole atmosphere very emotional and romantic, so Carol and Therese kiss each other for the first time. They then proceed to spend some quality time together. The next morning, Carol receives a telegram while Therese loads the car with their suitcases. Carol comes outside, panicking and demanding her suitcase. She grabs the gun from it and runs back to a room in the motel. The goofy man, Tucker, is inside. He reveals himself to be a private detective, and he has bugged their room as well as other rooms they stayed at for the past few days, recording their conversation and their romantic encounter. Carol points the gun at him, but he tells her that he has already sent the recordings to Harge. This makes Carol very sad, and now she has to rethink about her future. That night, as they prepare for bed in their motel room, Carol is aware of the impending challenges she'll face in the divorce proceedings with Harge. Despite these difficulties, Carol invites Therese to share her bed. Therese joins her, and they have another romantic encounter. When Therese wakes up the following morning, Carol is gone and Abby is there. Abby informs her that Carol had asked her to drive Therese back to New York, explaining that Carol had taken an earlier flight back herself. Here, Abby tells the history of her friendship with Carol, which began when they were just 10 years old. She also mentions a past romantic encounter between her and Carol during their teenage years. Abby then hands Therese a letter that Carol has written. In the letter, Carol voices her deep affection and longing for Therese, but explains that for the time being, they must maintain a distance. Therese returns to New York City, where she develops the photographs she took during their road trip, cherishing the memories of her time with Carol. She also gets a job at the New York Times in the photojournalist department. Meanwhile, Carol is meeting with Harge and her daughter, but she tells Abby that she is not happy and still wants divorce. In the midst of Carol's divorce proceedings, Harge's lawyer threatens to expose her as a lesbian to gain full custody of their daughter. In response, Carol acknowledges her same-sex attraction as a part of her identity and refuses to apologize for it. She is ready to give full custody of her daughter to Harge, but she expresses her desire for regular visitation rights with her daughter. Several months later, Therese receives a letter from Carol requesting a meeting at a restaurant. Initially, Therese tosses the letter in the garbage and continues with her work. However, that evening, Carol arrives at the restaurant as scheduled, and Therese is already there, waiting for her. They engage in a conversation conversation during which Carol expresses her admiration for Therese's appearance and informs her that she now has an apartment in the city. Carol shares details about her life, mentioning her job and the regular visits she has with her daughter. She invites Therese to move in with her, but Therese declines, still coping with the emotional aftermath of their previous separation. Carol understands Therese's decision and suggests that they meet later that evening at a restaurant. Therese, however, declines this invitation as well. After a moment, Carol tells Therese, "I love you."
I love you.
Their intimate conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Jack, who invites Therese to the party of a mutual friend. At the party, Richard, Therese's ex, is present, dancing with another girl. A friend attempts to strike up a conversation with Therese in the kitchen, but Therese is mentally preoccupied with the thoughts of Carol, so she decides to leave the party and goes to the restaurant mentioned by Carol. She spots her sitting at a table in the back. When their eyes meet, Carol's face lights up with joy. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more recaps.